This is a recording of the Amud that we're doing today, which is Nun Zion Amud Beis. Nun Zion Amud Beis. We're up to the top of the page, the very top line. Amar Rabbi Yechanan. So Rabbi Yechanan said, Hishkim v'nafal pasuk l'teich piv harei zeh nevuah ketana. If somebody woke up in the morning and he has a pasuk in his mind, so that is a small nevuah. And as I mentioned last time when we saw this Gemara, we saw the more Tubadagon and Hamad Bays. That is fitting very nicely with Reb Yechanan, because Reb Yechanan is the one who would tell the kids, "Psikli Psukecha," tell me a pasuk of yours, and he would learn from it. So it makes perfect sense to say that if somebody wakes up with a pasuk in their mind, that would be according to Shita Reb Yechanan, who views that as being significant. Tana Rabbanan. The rabbis taught Shloshim Malachim Haim. There are three kings. Haraya David B'Chalayim. Somebody sees David HaMelech in a dream. Not sure what it means exactly seeing David HaMelech, but somehow Yitzabel Chasidus. Then a person should expect Chasidus. Shlomo Yitzabel Chachma. By Shlomo it makes sense to understand about Chachma, given he's the smartest person. Achav, given how terrible it was, Yidag Min HaParanis. Then somebody should be concerned about something negative happening. Gimel Nevi'im Haim. There are three prophets. Already Sefer Malachim. Somebody sees Sefer Malachim, not exactly sure what it means. You see the book of Malachim, like we see a part of the book. It doesn't mean about thinking about Psukim. Again, not 100% clear, but somebody who sees Sefer Malachim, it's L'Gdula. He should be prepared for greatness. Yecheskel should be waiting, anticipating wisdom, and Yeshaya Tzapel and Achama. Yeshaya about comfort. But then it says Yirmiyah Yidagman Aparanis. And by Yirmiyah, you should be concerned about something negative happening. Obviously, that's what Yirmiyah is talking about, the Chorban, etc. So it's a little weird because we just did Gimel Nevi'im Haim. There are three Nevi'im, and then we're mentioning now four, and it doesn't fit with the approach, which is two good and then one bad. So if you look at the Gra removes here this Yeshaya, Yitzabel, and Achama. So if you remove that, then it fits into the same sort of style as the other ones. It is the Gemara, and the Gemara says Shlosh Ksuvim Gedolim Haim. There are three of the sort of major Ksuvim. Haim, what are the three? Haroya Sefer Tehillim, Mitzapel Chasidus. Somebody sees Sefer Tehillim, he should be anticipating Chasidus. Again, the same was true with David. The same was true with seeing David HaMelech, and Jim was also supposed to be anticipating Chasidus. So too Sefer Tehillim, which David HaMelech writes, then it makes sense. You'd also be considering or anticipating Chasidus. Mishlei, again, something that Shlomo HaMelech wrote, so it makes sense to understand why that's paralleled by assuming wisdom will be anticipated. And then Eiv Yidag Min HaParanis, and again, Eiv, given the content of the book, so somebody should be concerned about negative things happening, and again, that would fit with Yirmiyah as well. Shlosh Ksuvim Ketanim, there are three sort of small books of Ksuvim, like why does something get the Ksuvim Gedolim versus something at the Ksuvim Tanim. Not 100% clear. Maybe it's a reference to size. Size-wise, these books are smaller. Maybe that's why. Not 100% clear. So Haraya Shir Hashirim B'Chalayim. Somebody sees Shir Hashirim in a dream. So Yitzabel Chasidus. This is obviously written by Shlomo, but in the order of how we'll be doing it, it's Chasidus, Chachma, and then Paranias. So Shir Hashirim is Chasidus. Kahelas is Yitzapel of Chachma. Kahelas, a person should be anticipating wisdom. And then Kina is Yidag Manaparanis. Again, Kina is, again, another book by Yirmiyah, Eicha. So a person should be concerned about negative things happening, which would again fit with what we already said about the book of Yirmiyah itself. Now we have another part of Kesuvim that didn't fit into Kesuvim Gedolim or Kesuvim Ketanim. Haraya Megillas Esther. Somebody says Megillas Esther. Pasha just sees Megillas Esther. Again, what does it mean when we say seeing a book? What does that mean? Does it mean seeing the book, like the cover of the book? Does it mean seeing a psukim in the book? Like what exactly that means? Okay. Either way, so Haraya Megillas Esther Nes Na'asaloi. Somebody sees Megillas Esther in a dream, he's going to have Nisan happen. again, it's interesting. The Gemara tells us in Yuma on Chavtes, the Gemara tells us that Esther, when she went in to Achashverosh, so she said Lam Natzach Al Yasa Shachar. That was the Mizmor Chav Beis that she said when she went in, and Eli Lama Zavtani Rachim Mishuasi Devishagasi. So the Gemara there in Yuma Chavtes Darshans, what does it mean? Ayel Sashachar. The Gemara has a couple of different potential options. One option is Ma Esther Seif Kol. I'm sorry, Ma Shachar Seif Kol Halayla. Af Esther Seif Kol Anisim. Esther was the end of miracles. The end of miracles is the fundamental idea that the end of miracles happens at the same time. Like the more Yuma Samach Test tells us, that was also the time of the end of Avodah Zarah, the end of the Yitzhar for Avodah Zarah. At the same time that you no longer have the Yitzhar for Avodah Zarah, then obviously you don't have miracles anymore. The Gemara tells us in Baba Basra Yud Beis, Charvab Bayis Rishon, right? When the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, so Nostalgia, Nevuah Yisrael, so the Nevuah was ended. The more of there says is Nevuah Nitna Nevuah Menavim V'Nitna L'Chachamim. You look in the Gemara in Yuma on Tesson base. The Gemara says that when the Beit HaMikdash, so the Nevuah and stock of Nevuah went away, but Vadam Shnashim Ruach HaKodesh, but they still had something else. And in any event, so it's interesting that we're saying that if you see Megillas Esther, you're going to see an ace, right? Even though Esther is the sign that there's no more Nisim, right? Like Ibn Ezra says in the opening of the Megillah that there is no mention of the Rein Shalom in the Megillah, and the Ibn Ezra's understanding was because of the fact that Esther was written without, was not written by Baruch and Esther. It was actually a Chronicles that they sort of rewrote to make it work for us. But that's why there's no name of Hashem in there. We say, of course, Hashem is hiding. He's being masked. And of course, his presence is there, but it's not obviously there. And so the nace, as it is the nace that unfolds with the nature, is the nace that unfolds without HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hand imposing into the world. So interestingly, perhaps then one has to understand how Megillas Esther, nace nasaloi. I'm thinking of this now, is that maybe the nace that's going to happen to him doesn't say it's Shabbat in anticipation. It says here that you know for sure if you see Megillas Esther, the nace is going to happen, but the nace is going to happen as nature unfolds. So it's going to be up to you in a sense to be able to see the nace. Perhaps that's the understanding. Okay, continues the Gemara. There are three rabbis. If you see them in a dream, then it means certain things. So if you see Rabbi in a dream, you should anticipate wisdom. Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, it's Apple Ashiros. Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah should anticipate wealth. We know that Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah was very wealthy. We already have the Gemara back on Chavchet and Beis. The Gemara told us that Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah that he was Roy on Chavchet and Beis. I apologize. That he was Roy. Why? El Nukman Elazar ben Azariah who Chacham who Ashir v'Asiyu leEzra who Chacham di Makshlim Mefargler v'Ashir di Yisrael lefluchil leBekeser afu Azal Falach v'Asiyu leEzra. So interestingly, the Gemara and Chavzayin Beis and Brachot, the Gemara told us that the number one quality Bar Elazar ben Azariah that made him worthwhile to become the replacement Nasi while Rabbi Shua and Gamliel were having their fight was the fact that he was a Chacham and an Ashir. Now, here we're saying that if you see Rabbi in a dream, you should think about Chachma. If you see Rabbi in a dream, you should think about Ashiras. You should be anticipating Ashiras. Why is that the direction? After all, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a Chacham first in the list of his qualities, and Rabbi was also a very wealthy person. Rabbi was incredibly wealthy. The Gemara tells us, we're going to have later on the page, the Gemara is going to tell us that like pasuk mishulchanim like tzanim like chazer like yeshua like mishulchanim like mishagisham. Rabbi always had just unbelievable wealth. That even in the days before refrigeration, he had all types of delicacies always available for him. All right, we'll have to leave that as a question. The last is if you see Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, Yidag ben Aparanis. Right, of course we know what happened to Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. Right, we've had Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha before. Right back on the Gemara told us Back early in Brachos, the Gemara said that Tanya Rav Shmuel ben Elisha and Zayin ben Aleph Hamachas Echnashlak Joseph Na'ev Lefnim, but in the end, his end was not pleasant. Right, he was one of the Harugei Malchus. Okay. Now we say so we have the same kind of concept of the three, but this has changed a bit. Instead of talking about Chasidus and Chachma, here we say Chachma and Ashirus and then Puranis, which is interesting because by Rebbe we could have said Chasidus. Rebbe was called Rebbe or Beno HaKadosh because of his unbelievable level of Chasidus. He mamish went Lefnim, Shuras Hadin. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos Kufif. That's why he's called Rebbe. Nevertheless, we're still focusing here on his Chacham, not on his Chasidus. All right, continues the Gemara. Shlosh Tamid Chachamim Araya Ben Azir B'Chalim Yitzab L'Chasidus. So the three Tamid Chachamim, if you see them, you should anticipate three different things. If you see Ben Azir, you should be anticipating Chasidus. Ben Zayim Yitzab L'Chachma. Ben Zayim, you should anticipate Chachma. And Acher, if you see Elisha Ben Avuyah, you should be you should be concerned about negative things to happen. Interestingly, so the Gemara goes back to the order here about Chasidus, Chachma, and Puranis. So we just really switched it up for Rebbe. The question is, why would we switch it up for Rebbe? Why wouldn't Rebbe be the classic example of Chasidus? And also, I should just note that by the good parts, we say Yitzapa. But by the bad, by Puranis, we say Yida, you should be concerned about it. We don't say Yitzapa. Why? Because I feel even if right, if a person is in a very terrible situation, Alinatzim and Arachamim, the Gemara tells us that back on Yudam and Aleph and Brachot. So a person never gives up hope. Never gives up hope. There it was on the bottom of the page. Okay, so it continues the Gemara now. We are up to so if you see Ben Azin and Chalaim, you see Tzabla Chasidus, Ben Zayim Tzabla Chachman, Achi Deben HaPuranis. Notice the difference. We said in the first example was Shlosh Chachamim, and now we're saying Shlosh Tamid Chachamim. So I see here in my notes that I wrote down something, and then I saw that the Marsha says exactly the same thing. So the Tamid Chachamim are essentially the students of the Chachamim, and the Chacham are the Chacham themselves. We today use it, basically interchangeably or even more. We don't even use the word Chacham. We just talk about someone as a Talmud Chacham, who's a serious Talmud scholar. But really, it's a knock. When you say someone's a Talmud Chacham, means they're not the Chacham; they're the Talmud of the Chacham. So Ben Naz ben Zayma and obviously Acher, they never really made it. They never got smicha, etc. So they're only ever known as Tamid Chachamim and not Chachamim themselves. All right, continues the Gemara. All different types of birds are wonderful for dreams. Chutz min apil. All right, so all different types of animals are wonderful for dreams, except for the elephant, v'akaif, and the type of monkey, food, another type of monkey, maybe an ape. So all dreams, if you see them having animals, that's not a problem. But these apes or the elephants, Rashi says that they are very different in the way they look. So those are not going to be positive. Kfaid is a chashdem l'kaif. A kfaid is an animal that looks like a monkey. Yesh l'zon of aruch, and it has a long tail. Ushma martina. So Rashi says maybe that's called a martine, which I think might be a type of a monkey. Okay. All right, so moving on to the Gemara. The Gemara tells us now. Question. You're telling me that all different types of animals are nice to see in dreams, except for the elephant. But we already just said, that we said if somebody sees an elephant in the dreams, you're going to have, niflois. Amazing things happen. If he sees a bunch of elephants, he's going to have mamash pili plois. We said this just now in the Vavam base. So what are we saying? So the Gemara says the same answer that we said before on the Zayd Amud Aleph, which is that So then for the Gemara, like kasher had the Messiah had the Messiah. Depends if you have saddled up animal or not. If the animal is basically under your thumb, under your control, then it's a good sign. If you're not in control and the animal's in control of you, then it's a bad sign. Okay, continues the Gemara. Called mine matkas yafan lachalayim. All different types of metal kalim that one has in a dream is all good signs. Chutz mimar pesel v'kardim, except for mar, it's like a type of a hoe. Pesel is some type of a chisel. A kardim is some sort of an axe. Those are not good signs. If you see them in a dream, those are negative signs. Why is that? Rashi told us because of the fact that Shavluim Malachton Lechabel Hashos, because they could hurt people. That's only when is it a bad sign if you see them when they're in sort of the kind of a mode where they can actually, hurt somebody. In that situation, then obviously that's not the most ideal type of situation. So the Gemara continues, and we are now about the vegetables. And the next Gemara is the Kolmine Peris Yafan what different types of fruit, right? Our vegetables are good in a dream. Chutz mi fage tomorrow, right? Except for fage tomorrow are the sort of early dates, right? So those are as Rashi Bishul called sarcham. They're not really ripe. So that wouldn't be a good sign, right? Because obviously unripe dates is unripe, events. So you're not really necessarily at the place where something ought to be. So that would be considered a negative. Homine rockers, or all different types of vegetables are good in a dream. Chutz mirashi liftais, except for the heads of liftais is what's the word? Uh, turnips, right? Except for the heads of the turnips. Kichaza, the Gemara explains, Kichaza b'chanaya chaza, right? That's the truth is that when we say that's negative, is the and when it's disattached. When it's attached, then it's when it's mechuber, then it's fine. But when you disattach it, Rashi explains, when you disattach it, it's v'tol shemin hulamakas k'depashar lebar hedya lebrava kulfi blas, right? So if you go back to the Gemara told us back on the Gemara told us back on trying to find it. Oh, here it is on Nun Vav and Aleph, halfway down on the wide lines. So the Gemara said that Chazoi Tre Gargalidi de Lifta. Somebody saw the tops of turnips. So Amalei train Kulfa Balas. You saw two turnip heads. So you're gonna get two blows. When are you gonna get two blows? Why was that a simon, a bad simon? So when the turnip is attached, and it's not a bad simon. When the turnip is disattached, then it's a bad simon because turnips can hurt somebody. So if they're not attached, that means they could be doing some damage to somebody else. Okay. So chazak minute tzivayin yafal achalim. If you see various colors in a dream, that's all good. Chutz min tchelas, except for tchelas. If you see tchelas in a dream, that's not a good sign. Rashi explains why, because tchelas is yarikum pi umi shepanav yirakim chelu. Because that's green, and green is the color of what six people's faces. They look very sallow in those situations. So that is going to be a negative if somebody sees something green in the dream, because that would be an indication that they're not doing so well. Okay. So one thing to just mention is that Rashi here is very interesting. Rashi, except for tchelas, because that's the sallow looking color. So Rashi is interesting because Rashi is explaining that tchelas is a bad color. It makes a dream indicate that somebody is sick because it's green. And look at the lashon of Rashi is yoriku. It's green. Panav yiraikim chaylu. Because when a person has green face, it means he is sallow looking. He doesn't look very good. Right? Gemara told the Megillah there in your base that Esther was Yirak Raka. She was very green. So she needed a chutz shel chesed in order to, make her attractive, because naturally speaking, people who look very green are not exactly very attractive, look very sickly. But what is fascinating is that according to Rashi's opinion, the chelis is green. This is the shita of Rashi throughout. If you remember, we had the Gemara, the Mishnah actually back on Tes Amud Aleph. The Mishnah told us in the Mishnah told us Me'emes HaKarna Shema B'Shachris. When do you read the Shema during the morning? Mishiyak ben Chelis Lavan. Right, the Tanakama said that you are able to start reading the Shema, saying the Shema, when you can tell the difference between Chelis and Lavan. What's the difference between Chelis and Lavan? Rashi said the Chelis is Yaraiku. Chelis is green with carbon, and it's close to the color of green. Right? Character is like, leeks, like very, very green. Now, this is a shita of Rashi throughout. If you look at Rashi in Chumash, right, when in the Parashas Teruma, we're talking about Tcheles. Rashi says it's Temer Tzavua B'dam Chilazon Utzva'o Yaroik. It's a wool that's dyed in the blood of the Chilazon, and its color is green. Also in the Parasha of Tzitzis, Rashi explains what exactly does Tcheles mean. It means Tzava Yaroik Shal Chilazon. It's a green dye of the Chilazon. And again, Rashi and Gittin on the Gemara tells about a sarbel of the karti. Rashi says it means that sevet tcheles dumya lakarti. So this is a consistent sheet of Rashi that tcheles is green, and most of us think that tcheles is blue. But unfortunately, that's the topic for another time. Moving on, says the Gemara, kol minei oifais yafan lachalayim. If a person's dream of birds, it's a good thing for a dream to have dreams of birds. Chutz min karya v'kfufa v'karfufi. All right, what exactly are these birds? Not 100% sure. Rashi tells us a bunch of Laz words, but there's something about them. Adam. They have the cheeks like the cheeks of a person. Therefore, they're really gross. What birds have cheeks like or faces that are much more human-like? They're very big faces. So, like an owl, like an owl. There's different kinds of owls, but karfufai is a bat, a bat. So if a person has a dream of any of these kinds of things, so then that's three things go into a body, and the body does not have any hanaya from it. What are they? Good gedanias, vikafanias, upage tomorrow. So again, these are things, various things that go into the guf, but don't. The guf has no major hana from it. Rashi gives us what these are. Good gedanias are tziratush. I don't know what that means, but the Ma'aseh Rashi, the Lade Rashi that I have over here explains it as duv devan, right? Cherries, right? Kapaniyais. I don't know what that is, but some sort of bad date. Page tomorrow is early dates that they haven't really had a chance to ripen yet. Fine. So all those things that go into a body and the body doesn't get hanoi from it, it's not considered good for the body. Three things don't go into a body, and the body is nevertheless still able to enjoy it. Right? The body gets washed. The vesicha attachment. Those are three things that doesn't go into the body, nevertheless the body still enjoys it. There are three things that are not Olam Haba, but they're like Olam Haba. They are Me'ain Olam Haba, right? Elohein Shabbos Shemesh V'Tashmesh. So those three things are like considered to be Me'ain Olam Haba. Tashmesh, what kind of Tashmesh are we talking about? Ilam Tashmesh Amita Makesh Kakesh. But Tashmesh Amita makes somebody weak, so how could that be something that would be what we were talking about here? El Tashmesh Kakesh must be going to the bathroom. So, well, what does that have to do with this? We didn't say make somebody strong. The bar was in terms of Elam Haba. So, what's the question about saying that it's Makish Kakish? How could that? Why would that not be considered like Elam Haba per se? The answer must be that in an Elam Haba, there is no sort of weakening of the limbs, etc. Fine. Shlesha Meshiv Daita Shel Adam. There are three things that calm a person's mind down. Elohein, what are they? Koil, Umara, Bereach. Right. The voice, sight, and smell. And these three senses are able to meshiv naitashalam, they're able to calm a person down. So the more explains, shlesha machiv naitashalam, the three things that are not merely return a person back to his right mind, but they're machivin daita shalom. They really chill a person out. And Elohim dir na v'ishna v'chilam none. Right, a nice house, nice car, right, nice clothing, nice wife, things like that. So just to point out that if a person has a house that they can't afford, then it's certainly not mishivin daita. It's certainly not machivin daita shalom. It'll all be in the negative for such a person. Obviously, it's about a person who's able to afford a nice house, a nice wife, and nice accoutrement, nice stuff. Fine. Chamisha echad mishishim. There are five that are considered 1/60th. Elohein, Eish, Dvash, V'Shabbos, V'Shina, V'Chalayim. These five things are considered 1/60th. 1/60 of what? The Gemara explains. Eish echad mishishim legehenim. Right? Somebody is in a situation of fire, right? That is 1/60th of what Gehenna is like. Devash Achamashishim Laman, right? Devash is 1/60th to the man. Right, the Gemara, the Pasuk told us Haman Kazra Gadhu, right? The time of Kazapich the Devash, right? Shabbos, when Shabbos is 1/60th of it's El Haba. At I'm sorry. We said Chamishin Echad Mishishim. We said there are five things that are 1/60th. So we said Aish is 1/60th of Gehenim. The Vash is 1/60th of the Man. Shabbos is Echad Mishishim Elam Haba. Shabbos is 1/60th of Elam Haba. Shabbos is 1/60th of Elam Haba. Shina Echad Mishishim Misa. Sleeping is 1/60th of death. A dream is 1/60th of prophecy. And each one of these can be sort of further expounded on, but that's basically it. These various things are not exactly as it will be in the next world, but nevertheless, there's some connectivity. There are six things that are a good simon for somebody who's ill. So if somebody's sort of sneezing, sweating, having a lot of bowel movements, has seminal emissions, or sleeping, or having a dream, these are all siman yafa for a chayla, right? And then the more brings some rice. Ito sneezing is a good siman for a chayla. The civi touches the hell or right with his sort of snores with his sneezing, right? It makes the light come forth. Zeya, sweating is siman yafa for a chayla. The civ zeh sepech halachem. I thought the zeh sepech halachem was a curse. So why are we saying that it's 1/60th? We're saying, these are wonderful things that to have Zaya is a good thing for a chayla. Siman yafel chayla. It's not a siman good. It's not a good siman for a regular person. Why would be a good siman for a chayla? I think the answer must be because if you're a chayla who has the dreams of Zaya, I mean, essentially, you're going to be coming back on top to go back to work to be able to sweat again. Okay. Shilshul the Sidmar Tzeli Pasech Leimus L'Shachis, right? Somebody who has bowel movements is going to be able to avoid death. Carry the Siv Yezer Yarachim. Somebody says carry. It's like the Pasuk says Yezer Yarachim. You have a long life. Shina the Siv Yishanti Azinu Achli. I went to sleep. I rested. Then it was good for me. Chalaim. Chalaim is the last of the list. That's also considered to be siman yafa for a chayla to have dreams. Says the Gemara, the siv atakimeni v'achayeni, right? That basically I survived, right? So that survival is itself a good sign, and therefore the Gemara is telling us that you have all these various things that siman yafa for a chayla, and that includes in it this last one, which is Chalaim the Siv Atakanir the dream that he got better. So that would mean over here as well. Somebody sees essentially, so I'm in a dream, then he should know that Siman Yafa. Okay, here's the Gemara. Shishvam Rapin Esachel Mechol Yoy. There are six things that a person gets healed, a sick person gets healed from his sickness. And his healing will be really a valid healing. Elohim Krova Teredim Asista and Yavation, Vikev Vaheres Visera Takave. Right, so these six things make a person get healthy from his sickness if he sees them, and the refu will be a good refu, right? Doesn't mean here that the person's having a dream of them, or he's just sort of eating these things, we're just getting sort of medical advice. So kruv, again, we already learned about the kruv, the cabbage earlier, trading on the beets. We already learned about this earlier. We said it was yafle naim, right? The koshken the ben shinayim, right? There was essentially a good thing to have these things. They actually will help you in a disease. So the Gemara there on Lamed Tet someone else said about the Teredin that was Yafal Alev, that was a really good thing. It would really help a person, heal a person. So we're seeing that here as well. Cease innovation, again, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but something that was sort of cooked here. The cava, the stomach, the harris, the placenta, the aceres covered the extra part of the liver. The Yeshim Abdog Kanim, even small fish. Small fish really help a person out. They make the body strong, etc. There are six, 10 things that bring a sick person back to his sickness. Elohim, what are they? Achal basar shar. If somebody is very heavy, he eats a basar shar, or basar shamein, or he eats fatty meat, basar tzili, or he eats roasted meats. Right, so all of these things would bring a person back to becoming sick again. Basar tzuparim, basar tzuparim is essentially, eating chicken. Or baited saluya, or roasted egg, grilled egg with taglachas, and what is the taglachas? Is the shaving. We already had taglachas, if you recall, the other day in Vav in the base, where we talked about the taglachas b'chaloim yashkim we're supposed to stay. So here we're saying that if somebody um, is having a taglachas, that's going to make them to be back sick. Right, it's going to return a person back. Ushcholim, that's a crest, ma'acholav and milk, vagabina, right, and cheese, merchatz, and the bathhouse also could bring a person back to being ill. Yishem afagazin also not to be bad for a person. Yishem afkishum, even cucumbers could be bad for a person. So tons of very small. Lamanik kishuim. Why are they called kishuim? Because they are very bad to the body, like swords. Any effective my box tip again, Hashem law. Snake Evit Nechal Turkin Gamal again. I'm Yehuda, I'm a Rabbi, Latanias, Vedra, Latanias for Rabbi. So like Pasim Shulchanim, like Snem, like Chazesh, like Yishum, like Mesacham, like Mesachasham. So you see from here that Rabbi always had access to all these things, even Kishum, and if he's obviously eating Kishum, then it's not a problem. So I say that it's going to bring a person back to being sick. Like Kasha, Virarabi, Bizuchi. Depends if it's big or small. The bigger the thing is, then you can understand that it could be something more negative. But the smaller something is, the more better it will be for a person. So on the kishum, to say that kishum are inherently bad, it's not necessarily true. It depends on the size of the cucumbers. Tanarabanan, Mace Babayas, Shalom Babayas. So somebody dies in the home, that's going to be a peaceful home. If somebody dies at home, that's obviously a sign of more peace, tranquility. Somebody eats and drinks in the house, it's a good sign for the house. Not the candle bias, somebody takes out the candle of the house. That's a simon raw. Obviously, the context here is you're not taking out something out of your house for construction. You're taking it out of the house, because in this case, you're going to go to make another Lego and start uh, if a person is going to be in a situation where um, where they are being maced by bias, as shalom by bias, So that's a siman yafa. If somebody's eating or drinking in the house, it's siman yafa for the bias. Not like kelim bias, it's a siman ralabas. Somebody's taking out kelim out of the house, it's a bad sign for the house. But again, it depends why one is taking it out. It could be one's taking out of the house, the mark of the house, and that will be presumably different. Taking our papa and son on the sadla. Our papa said that what we mean when we say we're taking out kelim out of the house, the bad sign is taking out shoes. Right. Called the shagol shechva mali. Right. The next line of the Gemara here is discussing a situation where um, um, the what do you call it? The person um, the person has the sandals and he's giving them away. So that is um, going to be a good sign. Bar misana sandal, except for the sandals and shoes. Called the yoshich v'mali bar me'afra v'chardla. Right, somebody is going to be bringing in. Then those are all going to be good signs, except for afra v'chardla. Those are going to be references to the grave. As we were just finishing up here, the Gemara, so the Gemara said that called shakal shichva mal, whatever the person who dies taking, and again in a dream, that's good, except for sanam sandal, except for like shoes or sandals, called the of shichva mali, whatever the dead person is going to give in a dream, again, like all good things, afar v'chardal, except for giving afar and chardal, which are signs that are negative. As Rashi notes, it's siman hu shiram on the kavur. That's a siman to for burial. All right, so we will stop over here, and we will do Nun Ches Amanav tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great day.